Mom's text hit the family chat at 8:12 a.m. like a banner over my bed. Great news! Kyle, Tasha, and the kids are moving in for a while, and they get back on their feet. Family pulls together. Red heart. I scrolled. Dad added, "We'll set them up downstairs with you, Lena. There's plenty of room. You can share the kitchenette and bath, right?" Tasha chimed in, "You're so good with the kids. Maybe you can watch them after school until we sort childcare." Kyle, "And keep utilities in your name for now. Easier not to switch." They didn't ask me to help. They assigned me to life. I rent the basement suite, private entrance, my furniture, my router, my name on the month-to-month rental agreement we signed last spring. I pay a flat rent to my parents, and all the utilities in my name because will transfer later never happen. I also buy more groceries than I admit. Some mornings the house feels like a duplex. Today it felt like a dorm they were stuffing. I walked upstairs. On the fridge, Mom had taped a chore chart she made for the move-in. Guest Kyle. Under rent, someone had erased my name and left the box blank. Lena was written over childcare, laundry, meals like they discovered a new synonym for daughter. I touched the eraser, dust on the counter. I could feel the shape of done click into place. 2 weeks max, Mom said, fussing with magnets. You won't even notice. We're family. I pay to notice, I said, tapping the envelope in my hand, the one with my rent receipts and Venmo history. And I have a lease. I set the single-page, month-to-month agreement on the table. My initials winked from the 30-day notice clause. Dad coughed a peacekeeping cough. We'll figure it out. Can you be flexible? For the kids. For the kids, Tasha echoed like a password. Kyle grinned like a man who's never met a deposit. We'll crash in your room. You can take the pull out. The boys are wild about bunk beds. My room is part of my rental, I said. So is the router you're asking to use and the power you want to keep on my card. He shrugged. It's all the same house. What's in my name is not a group project, I said. If I was family, why did only my card feed the lights? I went back downstairs and pulled my receipts binder from the shelf. Leases, Venmos, utility bills. I slid a neon sticky on the front. Fair or notice. In notes, I typed 2 options I could live with. Option A, sublease/cost share. Written sublease. Kyle and Tasha pay 1/2 rent plus 1/2 utilities due Fridays. No childcare unless booked, rate card attached. Spare key returned. Basement remains my private space. Option B, Lena's 30-day notice. I will give you a written notice Friday. All utilities in my name end/transfer on move-out day. I took my furniture and router. Keys returned per lease. I stared at the word Friday until it felt like a decision. On my door hook hung the spare basement key labeled Kyle. He borrowed it last summer to grab boxes and never gave it back. That would be the first thing to fix. I also opened my router admin page and changed the Wi-Fi password. Nobody was going to slide in early under we're already connected. I texted Aunt May. They're moving Kyle into my suite. I'm drafting terms or I give notice. Can I crash with you if I choose B? Her reply came fast. Yes. I also know a mover, Mr. Ortiz. Quiet, receipts, no drama. Want his number. Send it, I wrote, feeling my shoulders drop a 1/2 inch. Dinner turned into a soft ambush. Mom talked about how generous you always are. Dad said short term, 3 times like a spell. Tasha floated, we'll cover groceries, which she said right before discovering cash flow issues. Kyle asked if he could hold on to my router since it already fits the shelf. I lifted the binder and tapped it once. The sound was small and final. I'll email 2 options in the morning, I said. Pick one by Friday at 5 p.m. If I don't have a signed sublease and the first payment by then, I'll give 30 days notice and end every subsidy I pay. That includes Wi-Fi, power, streaming, and grocery auto deliveries. Clear as kind. Mom frowned. Is this really necessary? Yes, I said. So necessary doesn't keep meaning me. In my suite, I formatted a polite email with both options and attached PDFs. Sublease draft, rate card for childcare, utility transfer sheet. I scheduled it for 8 a.m. and set a calendar block titled Decide on Friday. Then I set out a small dish for the spare key I planned to retrieve and change the door code that evening. Upstairs, I heard the scrape of Kyle measuring my doorway for bunk beds. I sent my email to send, saved Mr. Ortiz's number, and placed an empty key dish by the door, waiting for a metal sound that would decide which life I lived next month. At 8 a.m., my email went out like a switch getting flipped. Subject: options for downstairs. Please choose by Friday 5 p.m. Option A, sublease/cost share signed sublease. Kyle and Tasha, pay 1/2 rent plus 1/2 utilities every Friday. No childcare without booking. Rate card attached. Basement remains my private unit. Spare key returned. Option B, my 30-day notice today. I give written notice. All utilities in my name end/transfer on move-out day. I take my furniture and router. Keys returned per lease. I attached 3 PDFs, sublease draft, rate card, utility transfer sheet, how to put power/Wi-Fi in their names if I leave. I kept the tone boring on purpose. I said a price, they said a guilt. Mom replied first. Honey, this is so formal. We're family. Formal keeps it fair, I wrote. Please pick by Friday 5 p.m. Kyle sent a thumbs-up emoji and, a minute later, a link to bunk beds he liked. I responded beneath it, so the thread would carry the context. No one is moving into my leased room without a signed sublease. Before anyone could, we already have a key. I handled access. I texted Kyle, please bring my spare basement key downstairs by 6 p.m. today. It's required by my lease. Then I changed the keypad code to my door and printed a comm sign for the stairwell. Private unit, please knock. At lunch, I called Mr. Ortiz. He listened like a metronome. We can pencil you for 3 weeks from Friday, he said. No charge to hold. If you confirm, we'll send a checklist and be there at 9 sharp. Perfect, I said. I might need witnesses as much as muscle. We are very good witnesses, he said, and I believed him. I also texted Aunt May. If they pick option B, can I stay with you for a week while I sign the studio? Yes, she replied, and I'll be there on moving day with coffee. I rotated through the bills that quietly keep a house running and turned off auto-pays that shouldn't be mine. Grocery auto deliveries stops next week, my streaming family plan ends on move out, and a temporary kids activities membership that somehow landed on my card in April. I left power/water/Wi-Fi as is for now. If I left, they'd have the transfer sheet and dates in writing. By late afternoon, Mom called with a new angle. Can we try your option A, but without the contract? We can Venmo, sweetheart. Paperwork feels harsh. Paperwork is what turns promises into rent, I said. Option A is signed. Option B is my notice. I'm okay with either. If my rent line was erased in pencil, my notice wouldn't be. At 5:40, Kyle clomped down the stairs empty-handed. Can I keep the spare for emergencies? No, I said, holding out the ceramic key dish like a finish line. The downstairs is my leased unit. If there's an emergency, you can knock or call. He tried a grin. You don't trust me? I trust process, I said. Key, please. He rolled his eyes, went back up, and returned with the little metal trader. It clinked into the dish, the sound of a boundary becoming true. I opened the router admin and renamed the network from Carter Home to Lena APT. It wasn't petty, it was precise. Then I scheduled a draft notice letter for Friday 5:01 p.m., unsent, just ready. If they didn't pick option A by the deadline, option B would choose me. Dad slid a revised move-in plan under my door around 9. Handwritten arrows pointing my dresser into the laundry nook and the kids' cots into my room. I snapped a photo, wrote "not agreed" across it in pen, and filed it under receipts. I set 2 calendar alerts. Friday 4:45, final reminder, and Friday 5 o'clock, decision. Then I drafted one last message and saved it as a template. Hi all, 15-minute reminder. Option A requires a signed sublease plus first share of rent/utilities by 5 p.m. If I don't receive them, I'll send my 30-day notice at 5:01. Love you. I'm keeping this boring and clear. Upstairs, I heard a tape measure snap and Kyle say, the bunk beds will fit. My phone stayed quiet. The key dish on my table wasn't. It had a key in it and a deadline next to it. By Thursday noon, Mom slid a color printout under my door like a verdict. Downstairs layout. Arrows marched my dresser into the laundry nook, my bed into storage, and kids' bunks, Lena's room. In the margin, she'd written confirmed in pink. They confirmed. A floor plan I never signed. I walked the paperback upstairs, set it beside my sublease draft, and wrote across their arrows in pen. Not agreed. Then I took a photo for receipts. Tasha parked 2 toddler mattresses in the stairwell, just for now. I pointed at the sign I'd taped yesterday, private unit, please knock, and said, not without a sublease. I carried the mattresses back up, gently, because the kids are not the problem. The problem is adults who think my lease is a suggestion. I stopped waiting for their choice and made mine. At 1:30 p.m., Aunt May drove me 5 minutes to a studio over the florist. Sunlight, a lock that belonged to me. I signed a lease starting 2 weeks out, paid the deposit, and took a photo of the keys sitting on the counter like a quiet future. On the sidewalk, I called Mr. Ortiz. Go ahead and confirm us for the 30th day at 9 a.m., I said. Confirm, he replied, and emailed a checklist. Label boxes, set aside receipts for big items, have 2 copies of the notice ready for signatures. We keep it boring, he added. Boring is safe. Back home, I opened my bills and scheduled cutovers. Power/water. And in my name at 5 p.m. on move-out day. I printed a 1-page, how to put utilities in your name, and stuck it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a peach. Wi-Fi, the router is mine. I boxed it, coiled the cable, and taped a note to the modem shelf. Service ending move-out day. Please set up your own account. Streaming/grocery auto delivery, end on move-out day. Nothing strands a child. Everything stops billing me. I didn't unplug a family. I unplugged a subsidy. Just in case Mom tried a last-minute, drop the kids downstairs maneuver, I programmed the doorbell auto message and set it to standby. No drop-offs or storage here. This is a private unit. Movers only on the scheduled day. Thank you. At 4:45 p.m. Friday, I sent my final reminder. 15-minute reminder. Option A requires a signed sublease plus first share of rent/utilities by 5 p.m. If I don't receive them, I'll send my 30-day notice at 5:01. Typing bubbles. Then the greatest hits. Mom, paperwork is harsh. Will Venmo weekly, promise. Me, option A is signed. Option B is notice. I'm okay with either. Kyle, we can't do half utilities yet. We'll make it up later. Me, that's not option A. 5 o'clock arrived like a clock that believes me. Nothing. At 5:01, I hit send on the email I drafted on Tuesday. Subject: 30-day notice to end month-to-month basement unit. Per our month-to-month agreement, this is my 30-day notice. My final day in the downstairs unit will be date at 5 p.m. On that date, all utilities in my name will end/transfer by the attached sheet. I'll return keys to you and to the lockbox. I'll take my furniture and equipment, receipts attached. Movers are scheduled 9 a.m. date. Lena. I printed 2 copies, signed them, and put them on the kitchen table with a pen. Dad read the header and blinked like he'd swallowed a lemon. You're serious? I'm formal, I said. It keeps everyone honest. Mom's eyes watered. You're leaving your family. I'm leaving a situation where my name pays for everyone, I said, tapping my binder. You had an option to share. You picked no contract. Kyle went for the Hail Mary. We'll pay you back. You will pay a utility company, I said, sliding the transfer sheet toward Dad. That's how this works after. They printed a floor plan. I printed a notice. I texted Mr. Ortiz, confirmed, paid the small deposit, and got a PDF that said we'll be there in the kind of font that means it. Then I set my phone's 000 for move weekend. Allowed through. Aunt May and Mr. Ortiz. Everyone else gets the can line. Please see the notice email and the transfer sheet. At 8:12 p.m., Tasha posted in the family chat, "It's so sad when people forget how to be family." I replied once under it with a photo of my rent receipts laid out like a timeline. No adjectives, just dates. Before bed, I taped a label under each large item I owned. Property of L, receipt, hashtag attached, and slid the router box into my suitcase. I placed the second notice by the upstairs keypad. When we all signed it tomorrow, the date would be ink instead of argument. At 9:43 p.m., Cal texted, "We'll start moving boxes downstairs tonight, so we're ready." I toggled the doorbell auto message from standby to on and set my watch to buzz on motion. Front door. Move-in had become move-out with witnesses. Move day 8:02 a.m. The stair cam pinged. Cardboard corners, a mattress tilt. Kyle's voice. "We'll stash the kids' stuff downstairs first." The doorbell auto message answered before I had to. "No drop-offs or storage here. This is a private unit. Movers only on the scheduled day. Thank you." They brought boxes and found a boundary. I texted the family thread for the record. "Please don't stage anything in my unit. Movers arrive at 9 a.m. I'll be out by 5 p.m. per notice." I pinned it. "Mom," herded the kids back upstairs with a tight smile. The kids waved. "Not the problem." 9:01 a.m. Mr. Ortiz and 2 crew in navy polos knocked. Clipboards, booties for their shoes, the calm energy of professionals. "Morning, Ms. Lena. We'll do a quick walkthrough and confirm only items labeled property of L, or with receipt numbers," he said, exactly like his email. We started in my living room. Every big piece wore a white label. Sofa, receipt number 1147, desk, number 2095, router/modem, hashtag A71. Mr. Ortiz photographed each label next to the item, then stapled the matching receipts to an inventory sheet with 2 signature lines. Kyle appeared in the doorway. "That couch is house property," he declared. I slid the couch receipt from my binder and placed it on the armrest. "Paid by me last July," I said. Mr. Ortiz photographed the receipt and wrote owner, L, on the line without breaking rhythm. Their opinion weighed less than my receipt. "Tasha," tried another angle. "At least leave the router. The kids need Wi-Fi." "The router is mine," I said, tapping the box. "Per my notice. Service ends at 5 p.m. There's a setup sheet on the fridge to open your own account." I held up the peach magnet instructions Dad had already seen. Dad hovered, frowning at the fridge like it owed him an apology. Mr. Ortiz kept it boring. "Sir, we'll need a clear hull," he said, friendly. Aunt May arrived with a tray of coffees and a grandma smile, weaponized for peace. "Kids, don't it run?" she chirped. Tasha surrendered them to sugar and silence. We signed the first inventory page. Mr. Ortiz read every line aloud. "Sofa number 1147, desk number 2095, bed number 1302, bookshelves hashtag 673/674, dishes box hashtag D8, router/modem hashtag A71. He passed the clipboard to Dad. "Signature simply acknowledges items belong to Lena and are being removed today." Dad hesitated, then signed. The pen didn't explode. Through the morning, the crew worked like metronomes. I returned keys as we went. 1 labeled basement, 1 side gate. I photographed them on Mom's palm with the clock visible. "Upstairs," Kyle announced, "a temporary borrow of my microwave." I pointed at the label, micro hashtag M, 55, and the receipt. Mr. Ortiz added it to the outgoing pile. "Borrowing stops at the door," he said, not unkind. If I was a freeloader, why did every label in the room have my receipt on it? At noon, the last box slid into the truck. Walk-through time. I opened cabinets. They were empty except for the peach magnet utility transfer sheet and a spare light bulb. I wiped the counters, took time-stamped photos, and set the thermostat to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, at the upstairs table, we all signed the second copy of my notice. I handed Dad an envelope. Deposit reconciliation. I owed nothing. I'd prepaid through today. And a printed, what flips off at 5 p.m. list, power/water in my name, streaming, grocery auto delivery. "Nothing strands the kids," I said. "Everything just stops billing me." Mom's jaw softened. "I don't like this," she said, "but I can't argue with how tidy you made it." "Boring is safe," I said, echoing Mr. Ortiz. 4:57 p.m. I stood in the empty downstairs with my tote and the boxed router. My phone buzzed. "Utility company. Service on account L. Ends today at 5 p.m. ISP. Disconnect completely." Start a new account anytime. Grocer. Auto deliveries cancelled. At 5 o'clock on the dot, the stair light clicked off. The last bill I'd ever pay for this house. Not a dramatic blackout. Just a calendar doing what a calendar does. I locked the private entrance, took one last photo of the clean floor, and walked up into the early evening. Mr. Ortiz handed me the final inventory with both signatures and a copy of the photo log. "You're square," he said. "Call us if anyone disputes an item. We have the images." Outside, Aunt May hugged me and popped the trunk. "Studio time," she said. We pulled away as Kyle pushed the kids' mattresses toward the stairs, this time to a space that no longer belonged to me. An hour later, Tasha posted a story. "Imagine moving out on your own family. Some people forget who fed them." I opened my camera roll where years of rent receipts sat in order like a quiet choir, and my new studio keys glinted in Aunt May's cup holder. Tomorrow, I'd choose which noise to answer, and which proof to post once, then never again. The studio over the florist smelled like lemon oil and new keys. Sunday 9:11 a.m. I set my router on the shelf, my shelf, and watched the signal bloom across a space that didn't argue back. Aunt May set a plant on the sill. "Peace looks good on you," she said, like a benediction and a joke. I didn't disappear. I stopped paying to be crowded. My phone buzzed with the last chorus from yesterday's smear. Tasha's story. Imagine moving out on your own family. Some people forget who fed them. It had the usual chorus of heartbroken face emojis and one cousin asking, "Wait, wasn't Lena paying rent?" I answered once, boring and final. I posted a single image collage. Row 1. A neat line of rent receipts labeled 2019 to 2025. Row 2. Utility bills in my name with paid stamps. Row 3. The 5:01 p.m. 30-day notice and the signed inventory. Dad's signature visible, no addresses. Caption. Timeline for clarity. Years paid. Option A, signed sublease plus cost share, was offered, not accepted. I chose notice. Kids safe. Utilities transferred with instructions. That's all. Comments off. Muted everyone on the smear thread. Receipts aren't loud. They're heavy. At 11:03 a.m., Dad texted a photo of a brand new modem and a blurry thumbs up. Set up the Wi-Fi. Added our card to power. Should have done this before. Thanks for the sheet. I sent back a simple "good job." Mom called and didn't make it to a fight. "Your father's on hold with the garbage company," she said, and then after a beat, quieter. "The downstairs feels empty. I'm going to miss you stomping around down there." "I'm 5 minutes away," I said. "You can visit my porch like a regular guest." She inhaled like she might reach for that old family first line. Instead, she said, "Text me your spare key policy." Progress measured in inches is still progress. I wrote my standing policy in one page and emailed it to the whole family with a subject line you can search later. Subject: visits, childcare and costs, my policy. I'm happy to help when booked. Childcare has a rate card plus deposit. I don't split or sponsor household utilities I don't live in. My space is by invitation. Please don't bring items without asking. If you need a template for a fair split, I'm attaching the sublease draft I offered. Love you. See you at birthdays as a guest. No one argued in that thread. A small, respectful silence. By afternoon, I had shelves built, a kettle singing, and a doormat that said "not a storage closet," because I'm funny when I'm done. Aunt May texted a photo of the kids, showing Jasper, different family's dog. Same good boy. Their new backyard, and I remembered, again, that children are never the problem. Then came the cousin group chat, our family's honest room. Cousin Ray, Tasha's post was foul. We all know who paid what. Cousin Luis, those receipts were a museum. I reacted with a heart and muted it too. Proof posted, chorus muted, weekend resumed. The Freeloader label couldn't stick to a wall covered in paid stamps. Monday 8:18 a.m., Mom forwarded a screenshot. Autopay confirmed. Her message under it, "We're set. Come by for tea when you want, my treat." That was as close to an apology as our family does without combusting. I put it in receipts, not because I needed it to win an argument, but because history deserves a folder. That evening, I walked past the old house with a bag of takeout for Aunt May. Through the window, I saw Kyle wrestling bunk bed instructions, while Tasha held a phone to her ear with the utility company on hold music. I kept walking. Adults making adult plans is not my emergency. Back upstairs, I taped one last note inside my cabinet above the mugs. I don't live where I'm not respected. When people erase my rent line, I write a notice. Clarity first. Quiet wins. I poured tea, sat on my clean floor, and opened the window to rose stems and street noise. My router hummed, labeled with my name like a boundary you can plug in. Nobody knocked. Nobody staged a box. The room stayed mine. A week later, Mom texted a selfie from my porch holding a grocery bag. Subject line, visiting as a guest. Progress, underlined by the key she didn't ask to borrow.